Equals I can still remember the sound of clanging pots and pans, that dreaded symphony that greeted me every morning. The rhythm of their chaos had become a part of my very being. My worn-out kitchen, more of a battlefield than a sanctuary, spoke volumes of my life's untold struggles. The cracked tiles beneath my feet felt like shards of broken dreams, each one carefully placed to remind me of the turmoil that had unfolded over the past few years. As I stood in front of the stove, the aroma of sautéed garlic filled the air, mingling with the fresh scent of chopped basil. My hands moved with practiced ease, but my mind was a torrent of rage that I could hardly contain. It was like a whirlpool, swirling and churning with thoughts of revenge that wrapped around me tighter with each passing moment. I was 50% chef, 50% soldier preparing for war. My hands trembled slightly as I stirred a bubbling pot of marinara sauce, letting the steam cloud my vision. I took a deep breath, wishing I could inhale it all, the raw ingredients, the memories, and particularly the anger that kept bubbling just beneath the surface. Clara, my brother Tom's voice sliced through my concentration, pulling me back into my chaotic world. You in there? It smells amazing. Yeah, I'm here, I called, my voice strained. Just trying to make something decent for dinner. Tom stepped into my tiny kitchen, his presence both comforting and irritating. He was always bright-eyed and quick to offer praise, a cloud of sunshine that often masked the storm brewing within me. He leaned against the doorframe, folding his arms across his chest as he surveyed the chaos of my workspace. You know, you could quit this job and just open a restaurant. You have talent, Clara, he said with a casual confidence that felt like nails on a chalkboard to me. I snorted, stirring the sauce a little harder than necessary. My cheeks heated, and not from the heat of the stovetop. Right, because that's what I need. More stress and financial disaster. Thanks for the support, Tom. He shrugged, watching me as I adjusted the flame, the frantic dance of fire mirroring my internal turmoil. Just saying you have the skills, you could make it big. That's easy for you to say, I shot back, slamming the spoon down on the counter. You have no idea what it's like to put everything on the line and lose it all. Not everyone has your safety net. The air crackled with tension, a fragile thread between us stretched to its limits. Tom opened his mouth, hesitating slightly before he spoke again, this time with more caution. I know you are not bitter about what happened, but you have to let go of it, Clara. You can't spend the rest of your life in this kitchen hiding. Hide, I echoed, my voice rising. Tom, you have no idea. This kitchen is my escape. Every dish I create is my revenge. Every plate is like a dagger aimed at the ones who took everything from me. What do you mean? He furrowed his brow, stepping closer. Clara, you're being dramatic. They aren't worth your misery. I laughed bitterly. Not worth my misery? You don't understand, do you? Those people ruined me and took everything I loved. And now, every time I slice into a ripe tomato or knead dough, it's like holding the weight of my entire world in my hands, all while I plan how to make them pay. Tom's expression softened, but I could still see that glimmer of disbelief lurking in his eyes. You can't hold on to anger forever, it will eat you alive. But it feels so good, I snapped, the anger boiling over again, bubbling up from somewhere deep within me. They deserve every ounce of pain I can dish out. And I will make them experience the hurt they caused. Clara, come on. His voice lowered, a hint of pleading laced through it. I know you are hurting, but revenge won't heal anything. You need to move forward, not backward. My heart raced as I turned to face him, my back straightening as I tried to gather my composure. You don't get to tell me how to feel. You were not there, not when everything crumbled. You couldn't possibly understand the depths of despair that those people dragged me through. Then let's talk about it. Instead of cooking your feelings, let's talk. Maybe that would help. He had stepped closer now, his presence feeling like an anchor against the storm within me. I wanted to scream, to deny him a glimpse of my vulnerability, but that moment of sincerity in his eyes softened my rage ever so slightly. Every time I think of Amara, every time I think about what she took from me, it fuels me. I won't let them think they've won. They'll pay for their betrayal. They'll wish they'd never treated me like that. Amara, he questioned, his voice softening. Has it really come to this, her? The betrayal stings, Tom. It cuts deeper than anything physical ever could. She was family, and family should never stab you in the back. My hands clenched into fists at my side, emotions spiraling as memories flooded my mind. The laughter we once shared, the promises whispered in the dark of night, the contented sighs over shared meals in this very kitchen, only to have it all dissolve in flames of deceit. Will it ever be enough? He asked quietly, searching for a glimmer of answers in my expression, but all he saw was the fiery resolve that had consumed me. Yes. I spat the word out, venom on my tongue. It has to be enough. I will make it enough, and you will see it. Clara, Tom started, his voice interjected with caution. You're not invincible. You can't just throw yourself into this abyss thinking you will come out unscathed. It will haunt you. You'll be left alone in this kitchen one day, and all it will be is a hollow echo of your bitterness. Don't let it consume you. I nearly laughed, but the humor died when I noticed the flicker of concern in his eyes. You have no idea what I've sacrificed to get here, what they've taken from me. Those words left a bitter taste in my mouth as he stepped back, sensing my resolve, sensing the fire that crackled just beneath my skin. Fine, just don't forget you have people who care about you, Clara. He turned to leave, whistling a casual tune ironically against my brewing storm. And remember, don't burn the sauce. Door swung closed behind him, and silence returned to the kitchen, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind raced, shadows of memories darting around the corners of the room. I could still hear the sound of Amara's laughter, feel the warmth of the summers we spent planning our futures together, knowing I had her back through thick and thin. How naive we had been. With one swift motion, I pivoted back to the stove, gritting my teeth as I continued to stir my sauce. The air simmered with a pungent aroma, and I let out a shaky breath, staring at the bubbling cauldron like it held the answers to my soul. I used to hold hands with Amara in the same kitchen while mixing flour and eggs, phases of our lives blending just as seamlessly as the ingredients I combined. But now, the memories felt as heavy as the stock pot on my stove, each glorious moment now tainted. They say kitchen hazards make the best plots for revenge. But ultimately, I knew the biggest danger was the unfolding shape of my own thoughts, dark and seething. I wasn't sure how it would all unfold, but as I poured in a splash of red wine, I felt a small rush of triumph. Make it right, make it real. I whispered to myself, a chant to channel my rage as the taste of revenge lingered just at the tip of my tongue. Dinner would not be just another meal tonight. It would be the start of something far more deliciously sinister. I would not just serve food. I would serve a narrative layered with vengeance that only the shadows of my kitchen could understand. The flames flickered again, a dance of their own, and I stared into the red depths of the bubbling sauce with eyes filled with hatred and a hunger for justice that felt like a banquet of lost hopes. This was not just about dinner. This was a war, a perfectly seasoned form of retribution that had simmered long enough. Now it was time to feast. The ghosts of the kitchen watched me as I continued with my preparation, my heart pounding like the boil of the sauce, picking up its tempo with each beat reminding me that soon there would be a reckoning. And for that, I would be ready. I awoke the next morning to a bright sun breaking through the curtains, the soft light scattering across the dust motes that danced in the air. It was a typical Springfield morning. The sounds of the city waking up filled the air. Birds chirped sweetly outside my window, and the distant rumble of a garbage truck echoed down the street. But despite the pleasant sounds of normalcy, in my heart, a storm was brewing. The events of yesterday were still fresh in my mind, Ben and Melissa merrily planning their future while I sat at the edge of the table, invisible and broken. I could still hear the laughter that cut through me like a cold knife. Ben, can you believe it? After all these years. I could picture her bright, sparkling eyes as she looked at him, her smile radiating warmth, like sunbeams pooling into a golden puddle. My stomach churned painfully as I rolled over, trying to shake off the lingering bitterness like a bad dream. I needed to focus. I had a plan, and there was no room for cowardice. Today had to be the first step to reclaiming my life, or rather, my life before those two had conspired to ruin it. I threw back the covers, my feet meeting the cold hardwood floor, waking me from my melancholy like a splash of icy water on my face. As I made my way to the kitchen, the scent of fresh coffee wafted through the air, giving me a moment's comfort. I poured myself a cup, letting the rich aroma wrap around me like a soothing balm. You've got this, Clara, I muttered to myself as I stood at the counter, gripping the mug tightly. With each sip, I envisioned the storm raging in my soul transforming into something productive, something worthwhile. Today marked the beginning of my revenge, and I could almost taste the victory. I began my morning routine, moving methodically, slicing through the remnants of yesterday's pain like butter with a hot knife. As the steam from my coffee curled in the air, I thought of my best friend, Sandra, who had always been my rock. I picked up my phone, knowing I needed her advice and support to execute my plan. The phone rang, each tone vibrating through my body and firing up the anticipation in my heart. Clara, oh my gosh, are you okay? Sandra's warm voice cascaded through the receiver, wrapping me in a familiar comfort. I heard about what happened with Ben and Melissa. I cannot believe those two. You must be furious. I let out a small chuckle mixed with a sigh. Furious doesn't quite capture the depth of it, Sandra. Feel betrayed, crushed, and ready to take action. Action? Oh, sweetie, what do you mean? She sounded intrigued, and if I knew Sandra, she was already plotting ways to help me. I'm going to confront them. I will no longer allow their little happy bubble to shove me into the shadows. Confront? You're going to meet them? Clara, are you sure that's wise? I could hear the concern in her voice, yet it only fueled my determination. No, no, this is not about being wise, Sandra. This is about justice. I won't be their victim anymore. Okay, okay, but let me come with you. I'll be there for backup. We'll make this a girl's day, you know? Her voice was full of enthusiasm, but I could sense the underlying hesitation. I appreciated her offer, but knew this was a battle I needed to face alone. Thanks, Sandra, but I need to do this myself. I need to dig deep, to confront not just them, but myself and the pain I've allowed to linger too long. I could tell she wasn't going to drop it easily. All right, but you better tell me everything afterward. I don't like the idea of you going in unarmed. I smiled, feeling the warmth of her support settle in my chest like a warm hug. I promise, thank you though. I'll take your energy with me. After we hung up, I couldn't shake the surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I moved about my house, each click of my heels sounding like a countdown to the confrontation. I stood in front of my closet, torn between an outfit that screamed confidence and one that whispered, "Don't draw too much attention." Eventually, I opted for a charcoal gray dress that fell just below my knees. It was stylish but understated, showing just enough of my figure to give me a feeling of empowerment without appearing too flashy. With my hair tied back into a sleek low ponytail and my face made up in a way that felt like I was preparing for war, I felt ready. But ready for what? I could not stop the doubts from creeping in. What if they don't take me seriously? What if I crumble? I forced those thoughts aside. Today was not the day to falter. It was noon when I pulled into the bustling downtown area of Springfield, the streets filled with people going about their daily lives. I parked a few blocks from the corner cafe where I'd arranged to meet them. The familiar aroma of coffee and pastries wafted through the air as I walked toward the door. My palms were slick with sweat, and my stomach twisted in knots as I approached the entrance. I took a deep breath, willing myself to be calm, reminding myself of my worth, and pushed the door open. The bell jingled softly overhead, and I was immediately met with warmth and noise. I spotted Ben and Melissa at a small table near the back, their laughter floating through the air like musical notes. Ben's easy smile made my heart ache again, a sensation fueled by revenge rather than love. I moved toward them, each step heavy with a mixture of determination and dread. As soon as they saw me, their laughter stopped, and I felt the eyes of the cafe land on me, drawn by the palpable tension in the air. Ben's smile faltered for a moment, just long enough for me to catch it. "Clara, wow, we didn't expect to see you here." His casual tone felt like a slap in the face, his naivety cutting deeper than the knife he'd wielded by betraying me. "Oh, I bet you didn't," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a real expression. "I need to talk to you both." "Sure, have a seat, we were just catching up," Ben indicated to the empty seat across from them. I hesitated for a second. "No, I think I'll stand." I crossed my arms over my chest, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. "Let me be clear, I'm not here to make small talk." Melissa exchanged quick glances with Ben, a flicker of worry coursing through her gaze. For a brief moment, a flicker of satisfaction lit my heart. "What's going on, Clara?" Melissa asked, her tone shifting from playful to cautious in a heartbeat. "Honestly, I'm just disappointed. Disappointed in both of you," I said slowly, gauging their reactions like a painter analyzing their canvas. "Clara, I know things are weird," Ben started, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Weird? Is that what you call this? You think this is just weird to me?" My voice was suddenly louder, the cafe around us fading into a low hum as my heart raced. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, threatening to erupt. "You didn't just choose another woman, Ben, you chose her. You chose her to share your life, to laugh and plan a future right in front of me." I gestured wildly around the cafe, feeling every eye fix on us. People turned away from their conversations, some pretending not to listen. I didn't care, this was my moment. Ben opened his mouth, likely to apologize or deflect, but Melissa jumped in, raising her hand as if to stop him. "Clara, that's not fair. You don't know how hard this has been for us. You haven't been an easy person to talk to." "Not fair. I haven't been an easy person. I had my world turned upside down, Melissa. This is completely insane. I thought we were friends." I could barely keep my voice steady, the edge creeping in. "Please, let's not turn this into a fight." Melissa's tone softened slightly, but it only stoked the flames of my anger further. "You said you wanted to talk." "I do want to talk, but not to get tangled in a web of apologies and excuses." I stepped closer to their table, feeling the familiar tension of betrayal filling the spaces between us. "I want you to understand how this feels. You have taken everything from me, pulled the rug out from under me, and left me to scramble for answers." Suddenly, their expressions shifted from half curious to defensive. "You didn't even try to understand my point of view." Ben fired back, his voice rising. "I didn't have to," I shot back before he could finish. "You didn't give me a chance, you made your choice without thinking of me." "I don't know what you expect then. We're happy together." He was seemingly caught up in his own emotions, his brows knitted as he gazed at me. "You don't need to rub this in my face. Just because things didn't go the way you wanted them to, you can't fault me for being happy." Memories washed over me like a flood. The times we laughed together, the endless plans we made. I felt reality starting to close in on me, pushing at my thoughts. I'm happy, I confessed, knowing the emotion was raw upon my face. But this is not about your happiness. You shouldn't turn your back on someone you've spent years with. I'm not just a footnote. As my words hung in the air, I saw a flicker of guilt flash in Ben's eyes, and in that moment I knew I had struck a nerve. Melissa reached toward him subtly, her fingers brushing against his hand as if to reassure him. Clara, I didn't mean to hurt you. You have to understand that. I cut her off. Don't patronize me, I exclaimed, feeling the rage rising like a beast within me. You made me feel irrelevant. You both made me feel like I was nothing more than a shadow, an afterthought. I spoke, the dynamics of power shifted. Ben and Melissa shifted in their seats, uncertainty flickering on their faces. I could almost feel the tides turning in my favor. Perhaps this confrontation was not entirely fruitless. Clara, I know you think that, but it's complicated, Ben argued desperately, running a hand through his hair. Our lives overlap, but aren't they our decision to make? His voice wavered, and I could taste the regret hanging between us like an unasked question. Complicated. I laughed bitterly. It only got complicated when you made your choices without thinking of the impact on me. You treated me as if I was just going to sit back and accept it. At that moment, I realized I didn't want to wallow in this resentment anymore. I had the power to make choices for myself now. You both assume I'm just going to allow you to walk all over me. You think I didn't see the signs leading up to this? I'm more than the complacent friend in the background. My voice softened as I acknowledged the truth of the situation. You didn't care enough to think about how this would affect me before you made your choices. Silence enveloped us, hanging heavily in the air. I stood firm, taking it all in, every flinch, every shift in their demeanor. I need you both to understand that this is not the end of my story. This chapter closes today. I'm reclaiming my life. I held their eyes, each searching for a hint of understanding. And if you think I am just going to go away quietly, you are dead wrong. Ben looked conflicted, his brow furrowed as he opened and closed his mouth, searching for the right words. Clara, please just— No, Ben, I interrupted, feeling a fire ignite within me. You can't just apologize your way back into my life. I won't let you. It's not just an apology, Melissa added, her tone shifting again. You deserve a chance to understand why we did it, why we felt we had to. Your reasons do not justify your actions, I stated firmly, and my world doesn't revolve around your decisions anymore. They let the words sink in, and I could feel the shift in atmosphere. It was almost palpable, like a tension-filled balloon reaching its limit. I took in a deep breath before continuing, but that does not mean you won't hear from me. I will not fade away just because you turned the page. This is just the beginning. I turned on my heel, striding toward the cafe exit, wearing my newfound purpose like armor. With every step I took, I felt lighter. The anger had shifted from a heavy burden into pure, unfiltered determination. As I walked outside, the sun warmed my face, and the spring air felt electric with promise. Today was not the end. It was a glorious chapter in my unfolding story. A recipe for disaster had become a guidebook for reclamation. The late afternoon sun streamed through the vintage kitchen window, casting a warm, golden glow over the well-worn wooden table where I sat, staring at the small note in front of me. The neatly folded paper seemed almost innocuous, but I could feel the weight of its implications pressing down on my chest like a boulder, making me acutely aware of every creak and whistle of my old house. The scent of rosemary and garlic wafted from the simmering pot on the stove, a dish in preparation that had become synonymous with my revenge plan. My stomach growled faintly, but I ignored it, too lost in my thoughts to think about food. How was it that simple scents could remind me of both comfort and betrayal? Cynthia had been my best friend for years. We had shared secrets, dreams, and laughter over countless cups of coffee in this very kitchen. Now I felt a crushing sadness whenever I thought of her name. It was Cynthia who had turned my life upside down, who had taken my dream and crushed it beneath her heel. How could someone who had claimed to love me, to be rooting for me, betray me so completely? I picked up the note and unfolded it slowly, almost reverently. The neat handwriting made my heart quicken with a mix of nostalgia and bitterness. Clara, let's meet at Cheers Cafe on Tuesday at 3. I have something important to discuss. It was Tuesday and it was now past 2:30. If it were anyone else, I might have felt excited about meeting them, but with Cynthia, it was different. The tension was palpable as I contemplated whether to reveal what I had found out, the truth that shook my core. I had spent the last week preparing my ultimate dish, marinating it with all the love, passion, and careful vengeance I could muster. After all, I muttered to myself, the words echoing in the empty room, it's about time she got a taste of her own medicine. I could almost hear the wicked laugh in the back of my mind. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, jolting me from my thoughts. I snatched it up, half expecting it to be a message from Cynthia, maybe apologizing for her betrayal or admitting she had made a huge mistake. Instead, it was my daughter, Leela. Hey, Mom, you still meeting up with that friend? She texted. My fingers hovered over the screen as I debated how to respond. Leela had never met Cynthia, but I had told her so much about our friendship. She's not really a friend anymore, I typed back, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. More like a lesson learned. Half a minute later, my phone pinged again. What do you mean, you okay? Leela was always the protective one. It was one of the things I loved about her. I'll be fine, sweetheart, I texted, just preparing a little surprise for her. The hint of mystery seemed to excite her. Ooh, a surprise, that sounds fun. You are going to tell me all about it later, right? Definitely. I could barely keep the smile off my face as I imagined her curious expression, the way she always lit up at the prospect of a story. Just then, I glanced back at the clock, realizing I had to leave soon. It was time to face the music and enter the lion's den. The cafe was only a couple of blocks away, but it felt like miles at that moment, a tether of dread wrapping around me as I grabbed my purse. The pot still simmered quietly behind me, pungent with spices and memories, but I would not let that distract me. As I walked to the cafe, the warm breeze kissed my skin, and the vibrant colors of early autumn danced around me. The trees were transitioning to oranges and yellows, a fitting backdrop for my bittersweet reunion with Cynthia. Yet, as I stepped into the quaint little cafe, the vibrant chatter of other patrons faded away just enough for me to focus. I spotted her right away, sitting at a corner table, fiddling with her coffee cup like it was a fragile piece of glass. Clara, I'm so glad you came, Cynthia exclaimed, her voice bubbling over with false cheer, her dark hair cascading effortlessly over one shoulder. As I approached, I noticed the sunlit shadows danced on her face, illuminating the remnants of our once glorious friendship. You look amazing, she continued, holding her arms wide as if to pull me in for a hug. Thanks, I replied, a tight smile forcing its way on my face. I ended up offering a polite half hug that felt more like an obligation than a genuine greeting. We sat down, and for a moment there was an awkward silence that filled the air like dense fog, palpable and suffocating. I took a deep breath, letting the rich scent of coffee linger in my nostrils, my stomach growling again softly in the background. Clara, Cynthia started, her voice a bit softer and more cautious than before. I know things have been strained between us since the incident. I want you to know that I never meant for it to go this far. I looked deep into her eyes, searching for sincerity. Strained, is that what we are calling it now? I asked slowly, letting my words hang in the air, a challenge laced in my tone. You had your people steal my cake recipe. That was not just a little skirmish, Cynthia, that was war. I know, but it was never that serious to me. Just a bit of fun, a prank. She defended, her hands swooping in front of her as if to ward off the reality of her actions. I thought you would laugh it off. You always had a sense of humor about these things. We would always tease each other. Teasing is one thing, I said as I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. Stealing my hard work, my passion, is something entirely different. My cake won the state competition, Cynthia. You acted like it was just another funny joke. I could feel fire rise in my cheeks as I recalled getting the email announcing the winner. I had poured my soul into that cake, every layer representing a failure I had overcome, a heartache I had transformed into something beautiful. Not to mention the emails I received from potential buyers for my recipe, I continued, more forcefully. They all thought I was some fraud because of you, and I lost my chance at a contract that could have changed everything. Clara, please just listen, she began, panic briefly flickering in her eyes. No, you listen, I interrupted, my heart racing as I could almost hear my own conviction ringing louder in my ears. I'm planning something that will put you in my shoes, and you will finally see just how much it hurts to have your dreams stolen right out from under you. I felt a surge of adrenaline kick in as I leaned further over the table, mindful of the disapproving looks from a couple nearby. I want you to taste just a fraction of your betrayal. Her face blanched, the splotches of red that had adorned her cheeks draining away like color from a faded photograph. Clara, please don't do anything reckless. We're friends, she pleaded, desperation thick in her voice as she reached across the table towards me. Friends don't sabotage each other, I bit back, my voice growing steadier. I'm giving you a chance to make amends. You owe me that much. I could feel the room closing in, the chatter of the cafe patrons feeling like a million pages turning in unison, creating an atmosphere that was simultaneously eerily quiet and tumultuous. I promise I will make this right, she nearly exclaimed, her voice rising with urgency. I'll help you revive your brand. We can collaborate. You make one of your special cakes and I will promote you. Just please don't take this further. Nobody wants that. All I want is what I worked for, Cynthia, I said through clenched teeth, snatching up my purse and standing up abruptly. The fight or flight instinct surged like adrenaline coursing through my veins, and I made my decision in an instant. Clara, please? Her voice cracked as I began to back away, feeling the heat of the moment trailing down my spine. The anger, regret, and betrayal all mixed together, fusing in my gut like an unappetizing concoction I could no longer digest. I can change things. I promise, just consider giving me another chance. I watched as her desperate lips moved, each word dripping with undertones of reassurance that I no longer trusted. You've had your chances, Cynthia, I replied sharply, my pulse pounding in my ears, drowning out the incoming chaos of emotions. I felt the weight of my plan pressing down on my shoulders, like a cloak of necessity I could no longer shed. Just wait and see what's coming. I have some surprises up my sleeve. With that, I turned on my heel and stepped out of the cafe, the autumn breeze rushing past me like a sigh of relief, mingling with my strengthening resolve. The world outside the cafe felt larger, nearly blooming in contrast to the cloud of tension I had just escaped from. I could almost hear the sweet symphony of the universe playing to celebrate my small victory, yet I knew this was only the beginning. Just wait, Cynthia, I muttered as I walked away, determination coursing through me like a delicious glaze sizzling on a freshly baked dessert, ready to provide the ultimate dish that would bring her to her knees. Each step was deliberate, fueled by the promise of revenge. I could already envision each ingredient falling perfectly into place, assembling into a recipe for the sweetest revenge imaginable. The flavors of my heart would be on display in more ways than when the sun hung low in the late afternoon sky, casting long shadows that dappled the ground with hints of amber and gold. I stood by my kitchen window, the scent of cinnamon and fresh apples wafting through the air as I mixed together a batch of homemade apple pie filling. It was the kind of day that should have felt peaceful, but my heart was racing. Each slice of tart apple reminded me that the time for my final act of revenge was at hand, and the sweetness of success lingered on the horizon, tantalizing but just out of reach. I could hear the rhythmic chopping of apples as I moved with purpose, my hands steady despite the turmoil bubbling within me. The kitchen was warm, filled with the comforting sound of cracking crust and the low hum of the oven preheating. But all I could think about was Mark. I peered out the window, imagining his smug expression as he scurried about on the other side of town, blissfully unaware that I was about to execute the plan I had spent months concocting. Clara, sweetie, do you need a hand in there? My daughter, Lily, poked her head into the kitchen. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and her cheeks were flushed, a result of playing outside with the neighborhood kids. She stepped inside, the sunlight catching the strands of her loose curls and giving her an ethereal glow. I could see the innocence in her eyes, the way she looked at the world as if everything was beautiful and bright. It reminded me just how much was at stake. No, hun, I replied, forcing a smile. I've got it all under control, just baking a little treat for later. I enjoyed having Lily in the kitchen, the way she asked questions and always wanted to know more, but today was different. Today was not just about baking. It was about revenge. Lily shrugged, unconvinced but obedient. Okay, just let me know if you need anything. I will be outside. She flipped back out onto the porch, and I could hear her laughter mingling with the distant sounds of children playing. The peacefulness of suburban life felt like a cruel joke. As I continued to peel and chop, my mind wandered to the details of my plan, all the intricacies that I had so carefully orchestrated. This was the part that turned my revenge from a mere daydream into reality. I had invited Mark and his family over for dinner under false pretenses. I told him I wanted to bury the hatchet, to mend the fences after years of bitterness. An irritating bite of guilt flared within me. Did I really want to bring them to the table, only to serve them a dish cold as ice? It was not just about them. It was about reclaiming my life and putting an end to their mockery, their arrogance, the way they had trampled over my dreams. I could still hear Mark's sneering laughter echoing in my mind, mocking my efforts and belittling my ambition. I paused, gritting my teeth. No more. This was where I took my power back. Once the apples were chopped and mixed, I quickly heaved the bowl to the side and began rolling out the dough. The cool texture of the pastry felt comforting beneath my hands as it started to take shape, but my thoughts remained consumed by what would happen that evening. I envisioned the look on Mark's face when he'd realized that all of my carefully orchestrated kindness was nothing but a facade. It felt intoxicating. The doorbell rang, jerking me from my thoughts. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and hurried to the door, taking a deep breath to calm the wild pounding of my heart. I opened it and there stood Mark, impeccably dressed in a crisp white shirt and navy trousers. His wife, Joan, stood beside him, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. They looked picture perfect, the quintessential couple everyone envied. I could see the slight smirk on Mark's lips, the way his eyes danced with satisfaction. Clara, what a lovely surprise to be invited here. I would never have said yes if I knew you wanted to actually be friendly, he chuckled, stepping inside uninvited. You should probably tell people you are a great cook so they stop thinking you serve takeout all the time. I nodded, swallowing my irritation, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Come in, Mark, Joan. It is wonderful to see you both, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos raging inside. I made your favorite apple pie. The corners of his mouth twitched at the mention of my pie. The very act of reminding him of my culinary skills was deliciously satisfying. Oh, really? You must be feeling generous, huh? Mark replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Something must be up for you to invite us like this. What do you want? Just the pleasure of your company, I replied, with an air of innocence that I hoped masked my true intentions. I gestured for them to sit at the dining table, the centerpiece a vibrant bouquet of freshly picked daisies and roses. The contrast between the cheerful blooms and the tension crackling around us was almost poetic. Joan smiled, picking nervously at her nails. Thank you, Clara. It is so nice to be here. Her voice was warm but tinged with uncertainty. Even she could feel the unspoken tension, like static clinging to the air between us. Just relax, we're all friends here, I said as I placed a plate of appetizers down, each little bite crafted painstakingly with love and layers of intention. I poured glasses of iced tea, watching the condensation bead on the surface, and above all, I kept my cool demeanor. As we chatted about trivial things, Lily's school, their recent trip to the Caribbean, the usual fluff, I could feel my pulse quickening with anticipation. I was biding my time, waiting for the right moment to spring my trap. I could sense their comfort settling in as the initial unease began to dissipate, lulled by my hospitality. I feigned interest in their stories, but my thoughts were churning. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I decided it was time to set the stage for the grand reveal. So, do you remember that charity bake-off I mentioned a few weeks ago? The one I decided to enter? I asked casually, letting my words hang in the air like a juicy piece of fruit ripe for the picking. Oh yes, I remember. You said you were going to try your hand at a pie or something, Mark chuckled dismissively. There it was, the familiar disdain, the arrogance bubbling beneath the surface. Well, I decided to bring my pie to the city fair, I continued, my heart racing. And guess what? I won first place. I felt a thrill cascade through me like a cool breeze. His eyebrows shot up, and for a moment I reveled in the surprise on his face. Really? Joan said, suddenly more engaged. That's wonderful, Clara. Congratulations? Yes, well, let's just say I used a few secret ingredients, I responded, allowing a coy smile to play on my lips. Later, the judges wanted to know my technique, and I explained how I prepared it. It was well received. What was your secret? Mark interjected, skepticism dripping from his voice. I maintained eye contact, my heart performing joy-filled flips. Family recipes are hard to only share with old friends, I said lightly, but I guess something really good will be coming back to you soon. I watched as his expression faltered slightly. I could tell he was processing my words very slowly, and I felt a thrill run down my spine. I see, he said slowly, resting his elbows on the table. So you think you are some kind of chef now, is that it? He leaned back, folding his arms across his chest, body language that screamed defensiveness. Actually, what I think is that there will be a lot to discuss when I serve my special pie tonight. I smiled sweetly, feeling the thrill of anticipation curl in my gut. The evening was growing deeper, and with it my resolve strengthened. What do you mean by that? Joan asked, clearly caught off guard. I mean you are going to get a taste of the very pie that won me the blue ribbon, I said, my voice slightly raised and firm. The weight of my purpose fueled my words. It is time for dessert. I gestured toward the kitchen. Clara, we really do not have time to sit here waiting on dessert, Mark shot back, but there was a crack in his bravado. And I hope you're not putting your medals on the line for some homemade pie you threw together. Just a moment, Mark, I said. What do you think I am? A simpleton? I stood my ground, the thrill bubbling inside me like a boiling pot. I have something little more special in store for you. Consider this my victory celebration. Victory celebration, huh? Mark smirked, but I could see the doubt flicker in his eyes, which made it all the sweeter. I was close now. I eased back into the kitchen, every step over the familiar tiles filled with purpose. I reached into the oven, feeling the heat wash over me as I pulled out my masterpiece, an exquisite pie, its crust perfectly browned and sugar dusted, filling the air with an aroma that was intoxicating. This was no ordinary pie. It was my answer to all those painful moments he and Joan had caused me. Ready? I called back to them. Do not keep us in suspense, Mark barked, clearly impatient. I could sense both hope and dread woven together in the air that hummed around us. I presented the pie with a flourish, placing it in front of them like an offering. Here it is, the blue ribbon apple pie, I announced. I had even crafted a fancy pie crust design that gave it an elegant touch, something to elevate it above the ordinary. The delicate golden crust was a work of art, and I reveled in revealing my sweat, my tears, my pain, and my past stitched into every piece. Looks nice, Mark said with a careful nod, but the sharpness in his eyes told me he was on high alert. Trust me, it tastes even better, I replied, an inviting smile looking back at them. As I began to slice into the pie, the sound of the knife cutting through the warm, flaky crust was like a song in my ears. I scooped out portions and served them onto elegant plates, a nod to the effort I had put into this evening. Dig in? I took a bite, the cinnamon and sweetness exploding in my mouth. My senses awoke, but I was only just beginning. What should we toast to? Joan asked after she took a mouthful, savoring the flavors, and I could see her eyebrows rise in surprise. How about to old friends? I offered, raising my glass. When our glasses clinked, the sound resonated with promise, a melody laced with all that I intended to achieve. Old friends, Mark echoed, but his voice held an edge, the glimmer of anxiety creeping back into the atmosphere as he forked another bite. It took just a moment for their joy to turn. Mark stopped chewing, his face suddenly blanched as realization washed over him. You actually won that contest? Yes, I said, savoring the moment, and I'm willing to share my recipe with you as a friend. What are you talking about? He sputtered, staring at the half-eaten slice on his plate. Let's just say I spiced it up a little, I said coyly, and as I saw the color drain from his face, I braced myself for the explosion. I do not want to know, Joan began, but I cut her off. Oh, but you will. I leaned in closer, savoring the joy that was dancing in my chest. Remember when you took the credit for the proposal I had worked so hard on? You thought there would be no consequences. Well, this pie brings those consequences to you. Joan's face dropped, and my heart raced with all the delicious emotion filling me. She had been complicit in all of this, pretending to be my friend while Mark took the credit for my work. Now it would all come crashing down. What did you put in this? Mark's voice trembled, and I could have laughed at how easily the smug arrogance faded, replaced with sheer terror. I leaned back, a satisfied smile creeping across my lips. Let us just say it has a kick, some of the best apples in town, and a secret ingredient that made it extra special. What did you? He stopped, clutching his stomach as if the mere suggestion made him sick. The truth came flooding back, something I had worked into the very heart of the pie, a pinch of revenge hidden in the sweetness. It was an attempt at justice, a reminder of the pain they had caused me, getting back at them. And now they would taste what it meant to be on the other side. Clara, what have you done? Joan shrieked, panic flooding her eyes. What you deserve, I murmured, savoring the sound of their fear. They exchanged horrified looks, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of power swelling within me. In this moment, I had taken back everything they had stolen from me with their egotism and arrogance. The tension in the air was thick, and I reveled in it as I watched them squirm. The pie was laced with humiliation and all the bullying I had endured, and I was ready to finish the journey I had started. Bon appetit, I whispered, savoring the moment, ready for the finale of my story. In a cruel twist this time, it was not my dreams that would be crushed, but theirs. I stood tall, my heart pounding with exhilaration, because finally, it was my time. The final confrontation took place in the old warehouse on the outskirts of Springfield, a place where shadows danced on the walls, and the air was thick with stale memories. My heart raced as I stood outside, the heavy metal door looming before me like a giant's mouth ready to swallow me whole. I had spent months planning this day, a deadly game of cat and mouse that was about to reach its climax. I could hear the faint echo of laughter from within, a sound that had once sent chills down my spine, but now fueled my resolve. This was my moment. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of rust and dust, and pushed the door open. The hinges creaked ominously, announcing my arrival. The interior was dark, lit only by a few flickering bulbs that swung from the ceiling like forgotten stars. I stepped inside, the hard concrete floor cold beneath my feet. The smell hit me, stale beer, cigarette smoke, and the metallic tang of old blood hung in the air like a shroud. This was Jacob Calhoun's lair, the man who had orchestrated my downfall. He sat at the center of a makeshift table, surrounded by a couple of his high-ranking thugs, their faces obscured by shadows and half-lit splashes of light. Clara, Jacob said, an amused smirk stretching across his face. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms as if I were merely an amusing distraction. I didn't think you had the guts to show up. Well, Jacob, I replied, my voice steady despite the storm swirling in my chest, I have always been full of surprises. Surprises? He laughed, a low, sarcastic sound that bounced off the walls. What surprises do you have? More speeches about integrity and justice? That old song is getting stale. You know, I always envisioned our final meeting to be more dramatic, I continued, stepping closer. A high-rise rooftop or a dimly lit alleyway, but this is just pathetic. His expression darkened for a moment, which was satisfying. I had watched him throw friends and enemies alike into the abyss, and now I relished watching him squirm. What do you want, Clara? I want you to listen, I said, feeling the weight of my words. You took everything from me, my business, my confidence, my family. The way you played my friends against me was something I never expected. I was an easy target, and you just had to pull the right strings. He chuckled again, his laughter echoing like an unhinged carnival. Oh, darling, that was the easy part. You were too busy being the good little businesswoman, too trusting. You thought people cared. Well, guess what? They don't. It's all about power and fear. I took a step forward, and the thugs shifted in their seats. You think power is everything, Jacob? Look where it got you. A dimly lit room with a bunch of thugs around you. You hide behind them because you know that you are nothing without them. The tension crackled between us like static, and I could see his patience waning, the smirk fading from his lips. Watch your tongue, Clara. You are in no position to lecture me. No, I am in a position to end this, I replied, the fire of determination igniting within me. I pulled out a small device from my pocket, an unassuming piece of technology that I had kept hidden for just this moment. This is a recording device, Jacob. Your goons here may be tough, but their legal knowledge is questionable at best. This little gadget has recorded every single conversation we had about your plans, the way you thought you could sit back and laugh while ruining lives. He stood up abruptly, the thrill of the moment disappearing as anger washed over him. You think you can play me like that? You think that little toy will change anything? It's not just my voice on those tapes, Jacob, I said, my voice low and steady. It is the voice of everyone you betrayed, every friend who turned into a foe because of your deceit. I have kept these as proof, and I will release them. You will lose everything, the respect, the power, everything you hold dear. For a moment, the room was silent, the hover of my words hanging in the air like smoke. Then Jacob's laughter erupted again, but this was different, a manic laugh laced with venom. You think you can threaten me? You think you can win this game? Not threats, Jacob, I replied, feeling all the confidence I had built up over the years course through my veins. Just the truth, you cannot run a business based on manipulation and lies forever. It will catch up to you. And what will you do once you release those recordings? He asked, pacing like a caged animal. You'll find yourself at the bottom again. You think the people you saved will stand by you? People are fickle, Clara. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in the conviction of my words. You're right, people are fickle, but I can build from the ashes. I have already found a new passion in life, a way to help others who have been used and discarded the way you discarded me. Their lives matter, and I am not afraid of losing everything again. Because this time, I have the truth on my side. The room was tense, and I could feel the weight of his disbelief pressing down on me. You think you can just walk out of here with your little victory? Jacob's voice was low and dangerous now. You think I'll let you? His thugs shifted uneasily, the air thick with uncertainty as I stood firm. You have no control over me anymore, Jacob, and the longer you hold on to this weird version of power, the more miserable you will become. One of his goons, a young man with a tattoo snaking up his neck, glanced at Jacob, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Boss, maybe we should hear her out. The recordings could. Shut up, Jacob shouted, slamming his fist on the table. You don't get to question my authority? The young thug swallowed hard and fell silent, but I saw the way the doubt seeped into his expression. Jacob, you know that I'm telling the truth. The higher you climb, the harder you fall, and I have enough evidence to make sure this is the end for you. Your days of arrogance are numbered. And what makes you think anyone will believe you? Jacob growled. You have nothing. You are a washed-up businesswoman without a shred of credibility left. I let my shoulders relax, a slight smile creeping across my face. Oh, I have something far more valuable than credibility. I have people willing to tell their stories, the stories of the victims you left in your wake. The room grew even quieter as Jacob's face contorted with rage, the edges of his mouth twitching as he tried to keep his composure. You think you can blackmail me with those stories? It's not blackmail, Jacob, I retorted, my voice sharper and more confident. It is justice. You use fear to control, but that control is slipping. I reached out to the community. They want to stand against you. Together, we can expose you. One voice in a sea of lies, he lashed out. You think that helps? You could be the next target. Not anymore, I countered, adrenaline spiking through me. I will keep fighting, and every move you make from now on will be tracked, documented, and exposed. His face flushed, veins bulging in his neck, but I held my ground, feeling the power shift tangibly in the room. I will not let this go unnoticed, Clara. I will come for you, and you will regret ever stepping back into my world. Jacob, you don't scare me, I said, heart pounding audibly in my ears. The only person I regret is the one who blindly trusted you. That person died the moment I stepped out of your shadow. At that moment, I heard a noise from the corner. It was the sound of a phone buzzing. I turned to see one of Jacob's goons glancing at his device, words lighting up his face. Boss, it's the police. They're outside. They're looking for her. The color drained from Jacob's face and his eyes darted to the door. What? How could they know? Maybe we should handle this? The young thug said tentatively, the fear in his voice illuminating the shift in his loyalty. I could see he was finally questioning Jacob's authority. This is why I told you to be careful. Jacob spat, frustration boiling over. Get the door, we need to get out of here. As chaos erupted, with Jacob swinging back to face me, panic written all over his features, I seized the moment. You see what fear does, Jacob? I shouted above the clamor as his goons scrambled for the exits. It twists and warps your reality until you are the very thing you tried to escape. You built this web of lies, and now it's collapsing around you. Shut her up, Jacob screamed, pointing in my direction as he tried to herd his men toward the rear exit. The sound of sirens grew louder outside, and I steeled myself. The truth will always come out, Jacob. You may try to run, but you can never escape your own reputation. You will always be the villain in this story, my story. As the doors burst open and officers streamed into the warehouse, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. Jacob's eyes widened in fury, his expression darkening as the realization struck him like a blow. You set me up, he yelled, lunging forward, but it was too late. Stop right there, a commanding voice boomed. Two police officers flanked me, guns drawn, the tension thickening as they assessed the situation. I could hardly contain the mixture of triumph and relief bubbling inside me. Jacob Calhoun, one of the officers called, stepping forward, you are under arrest for numerous counts of fraud, intimidation, and collusion. The thugs around him froze, glancing at Jacob for direction, but I noticed the shifting body language. They had seen his true face and it had terrified them. I felt empowered, standing on the other side of my own revenge. Take him away, I said with an edge of satisfaction. Let him experience all that pain he dished out for so long. As they stepped toward Jacob, I turned to the officers and added, and make sure you check his phone. He's been running a massive scheme and he won't go quietly. Clara, one of the officers said, turning to me with a soft expression, are you okay? I will be, I replied, looking around at the people who once preyed on me now scrambling for their own cover. Thank you for being here. It's time for the truth to finally be told. As Jacob was escorted out, screaming and cursing, I felt a flood of liberation wash over me. No longer bound by the fears he had constructed, I took a deep breath, realizing the weight had lifted from my shoulders. I had unraveled the lie and faced my demons. The air was fresh, the smell of impending rain wafted through the open doors. I had reclaimed my power. This was my story now.